She replaced her friend at the Halloween charity ball and picked up the wrong CEO. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. The ballroom shimmered under a canopy of crystal chandeliers. Masked laughter echoed between marble pillars, and every glass of champagne looked like liquid gold. It was the night of the Halloween charity ball, and everyone was dressed like a secret they refused to tell. But the woman standing at the edge of the hall did not belong there. Her name was Emma Brooks, a public school art teacher who borrowed her friend's invitation and her dress to attend. Her friend Lucy had fallen sick that morning and begged, "Please, Em, just go in my place. You will blend right in. Nobody looks too close at a masked face." So Emma did. Except she did not blend in. Her black lace mask slipped slightly as she stepped under the light. The hem of her borrowed gown was half an inch too long, brushing the polished floor. Her palms were sweating. The violin quartet faded into a low hum as she clutched her clutch tighter, scanning the room for a man named Ethan, Lucy's date for the evening. But when her gaze landed on him, or who she thought was him, something unusual happened. He was taller than she expected, standing by the champagne fountain, wearing a silver half-mask and a tuxedo cut so precisely it looked like sin in fabric. The man was scrolling on his phone with the calm of someone who owned the building. Emma took a deep breath and approached, whispering to herself, "Come on, it is just small talk and charity money. You can do this." "Hi," she said, voice trembling but brave. "You must be Ethan, right? Lucy's friend?" The man looked up. A single heartbeat passed. Then he smiled. It was not a polite smile. It was the kind that knew more than it should. He slipped his phone into his pocket. "Then I suppose I am Ethan tonight." Something about the way he said it made her spine tingle. Half of her wanted to apologize and run. The other half, curious, reckless, wanted to stay. "Good," she said, lifting her chin. "Because I am already late for our dance." The orchestra began the next waltz, as if the universe had been listening. He extended his hand. "Then let us not keep fate waiting." As their fingers touched, she felt the coolness of his cufflink silver, engraved with the initials JH. She noticed but said nothing. After all, who pays attention to details like that on a night meant for pretending? They stepped into rhythm. The dance floor spun in slow motion. Her second-hand heels glided over marble, and his hand stayed steady at her back, guiding her effortlessly through each turn. "Do you always walk into strangers' arms so easily?" he asked. "Only when they make it this easy," she replied, surprising herself. He laughed softly, a deep, unguarded sound that did not belong to a stranger. For a fleeting moment, Emma forgot the reason she was there. She forgot about Lucy, the borrowed dress, the shaky confidence. There was only the man behind the silver mask, and the haunting idea that she had stepped into the wrong life, and maybe the wrong man's arms. When the music stopped, she pulled away first, breathless. "I should go find Lucy's friend before he wonders where I am." But before she could move, the man said quietly, "Maybe you already did." "Hier hat Studel." The lights dimmed for the next dance. She turned to look for him again, but he had already vanished into the crowd. And all that remained was the echo of his voice, the faint scent of cedar and smoke, and a single question that would not leave her mind. If that was not Ethan, then who had I just danced with? That single mistake would change everything she believed about fate, honesty, and love. And maybe, just maybe, it was never a mistake at all. The next morning, sunlight leaked through the thin curtains of a small apartment in Queens. The sound of a subway rumbled far below. Emma Brooks sat at her tiny kitchen table, a mug of instant coffee between her hands, staring at the sketchbook lying open in front of her. She had drawn a mask, half silver, half shadow, just like the one the stranger had worn last night. The man who called himself Ethan but whose initials on the cufflink were JH. She whispered to herself, "You probably misread it. It was dark." But her heart knew better. Whoever he was, he had not been the man her friend was supposed to meet. Still, the dance replayed in her head on an endless loop, the soft pressure of his hand, the way his voice dropped when he said, "Then I suppose I am Ethan tonight." Her phone buzzed. Lucy's name flashed on the screen. "Emma, tell me everything. How was Ethan? Was he charming or boring?" Emma hesitated. "Well, he was definitely not boring." Lucy laughed. "Oh no, what did you do?" Emma traced the silver pen line on her sketch. "Nothing. We just danced. Then he disappeared." "That sounds mysterious. Lucy teased. Maybe it was for the best. Ethan texted me this morning. He said he never made it to the gala. His car broke down. Emma froze. The coffee mug stopped halfway to her lips. Wait, what? Lucy laughed again. You probably talked to the wrong guy. Classic Emma. When the call ended, Emma dropped her phone on the table. Her cheeks burned. So, she really had picked up the wrong man at the ball. A stranger who played along and vanished. Her eyes drifted back to the sketchbook. She added one more detail, a faint smile behind the mask. Later that afternoon, Emma's classroom smelled like paint and crayons. The walls were covered with drawings, cats, monsters, superheroes. Miss Brooks, can we make scary masks today? A little boy asked. She smiled. Sure, but remember, scary outside, kind inside. That is the rule. The children giggled. She wrote the words on the board. Masks of kindness. It became her theme for the week. Every child made a paper mask that showed one emotion on the front and wrote a secret kindness on the back. Emma's own mask sat at the corner of her desk, half silver, half dark blue. When class ended, she packed her art supplies, changed into her cafe apron, and headed to her second job at the museum cafe downtown. Rent did not pay itself. The evening rush was quiet. A few tourists wandered between exhibits, their footsteps echoing through the marble hall. Emma wiped tables, humming softly. The bell above the door chimed. She looked up and nearly dropped the tray. It was him, the man from the ball. The silver mask gone, but the same deep voice ordered, "One cappuccino, please." Herr Hott stumbled, coming right up. When she handed him the cup, he looked directly at her. "You were at the charity ball, were you not?" She blinked. "You remember? I do not forget people who look at me like they are trying to read my soul." Her cheeks flushed. "I thought you were someone else." "Guh." He smiled slightly. "So did I." They stood in the quiet hum of the cafe, the city glowing beyond the glass. She wanted to ask his name, but the manager called her to the back for inventory. When she returned, he was gone. A single folded $10 bill lay under the cup, shaped into a tiny mask. Emma opened it slowly, a smile tugging at her lips. That night, as she rode the train home, the city lights flickered outside the window like moving stars. She held the paper mask in her palm, thinking of the man whose name she still did not know. Maybe fate was playing tricks on her. Or maybe just maybe it was giving her a second chance at the same mistake. The following Saturday arrived cold and bright. Emma Brooks sat by her apartment window, sketching while the city hummed below. The folded $10 mask from the cafe lay on the windowsill beside her pencils. She had kept it, even though she told herself not to. Every time she tried to throw it away, she remembered his voice, low, calm, and a little amused. She shook her head and muttered, "You are ridiculous, Emma. It was just a customer." Still, she slipped the paper mask inside her sketchbook before leaving for work. At the museum cafe, she pinned on her name tag and tied her apron. The day began as usual, tourists ordering espresso, students typing on laptops, a group of art collectors discussing their latest purchases. The routine comforted her. Predictable days felt safe. Near closing time, a quiet buzz spread through the lobby. A private art exhibit was being prepared in the East Wing, something for the Hale Foundation, a name she recognized from the charity gala. She glanced toward the velvet rope separating the cafe from the exhibit. Staff moved lights and panels displaying children's art, bright splashes of color taped carefully to white walls. Her heart warmed. Children's art always did that to her. She whispered, "If only my students could see this place." While she wiped the counter, someone stepped up behind her. "You said that out loud," a voice said. She turned, and there he was again. The man from the ball, now in a dark coat instead of a tuxedo. No mask, no confusion, just the same steady gaze. "Do you always appear when I least expect it?" she asked. "Only when the timing feels right," he replied, smiling slightly. She felt her pulse quicken. "Your coffee again?" "Yes, but maybe with conversation this time." He sat by the window while she prepared his drink. When she brought it over, he noticed the small smudge of paint on her wrist. "You paint," he said. "Mostly teach," she corrected. "Elementary school art. Painting, drawing, a little chaos management." He laughed softly. "That sounds harder than running a company." She tilted her head. "You run a company?" He hesitated, then shrugged. "Something like that. I help manage a foundation." The same word from the banners in the hall, Hale Foundation. Emma did not connect it yet. She just smiled politely. "That sounds important." "Sometimes the most important work happens quietly," he said. "Like what you do." Her throat tightened. She was not used to people noticing her. Thank you. Most people do not think teaching art matters. It matters, he said. Kindness always does. Her eyes met his for a second too long. Then the manager called her to the register, breaking the moment. When she returned, he had finished his coffee and was slipping a small envelope under the cup. For you, he said. A thank you for the best cappuccino in New York. She frowned. You already paid. Low? Then call it a donation, he said, and left before she could protest. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note. Every mask hides a story. Keep drawing yours. And tucked behind it a business card embossed with a silver logo. Jacob Hale, CEO, the Hale Foundation. The world seemed to pause. The initials, JH, on the cufflink, the silver mask, the mysterious confidence. Emma's breath caught. The man she had mistaken at the charity ball, the man who had played along, was the host of the event. She closed her eyes for a long second, half embarrassed, half amazed. As she rode home that night, she held the envelope against her chest. If you were me, she whispered to the empty train car, would you tell him you knew or pretend you never found out? What would you do if you discovered the stranger you liked was a millionaire who had hidden it from you? Would you confront him or guard the secret and wait to see what happens next? Emma smiled faintly at her reflection in the dark train window. Somewhere between the silver mask and the paper one, she realized her story had only just begun. On Monday morning, the city was gray with rain. Drops slid down the cafe windows, tracing crooked lines of light across the floor. Emma Brooks wiped the counter, her thoughts spinning faster than the coffee grinder. The envelope with Jacob Hale's name was hidden inside her bag, but her mind refused to stop circling back to it. She had Googled him the night before. Pages of news articles had appeared: charity awards, corporate events, interviews about innovation and kindness. He was not just the CEO of a foundation. He was one of New York's most influential philanthropists. The same man who had danced with her under golden lights, pretending to be someone else. Now she felt both foolish and curious. Why had he played along? What did he want from her? Her manager's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. Emma, can you deliver this order to the exhibit hall? They are setting up for a meeting. She balanced the tray and pushed through the glass doors into the east wing. The lights were softer there, focused on the children's paintings arranged in perfect symmetry. And there, standing near one of the canvases, was Jacob Hale. He looked up the moment she entered. Miss Brooks, he said, his tone light but warm. You have excellent timing. Her heart stumbled. You remembered my name. Quote, hard to forget a woman who tells the world that art teachers change lives. Her cheeks flushed. I did not say that exactly. He smiled, taking the coffee from her tray. Close enough. She hesitated. So, this is your exhibit? Yes, he said. We are opening it to raise funds for schools that lost their art programs. Children deserve color, even in hard times. Something in his voice softened. For the first time, she saw the man behind the silver mask, not just a CEO, but someone who believed in something real. That is beautiful, she said quietly. My students would love this place. Then bring them, he replied without hesitation. I will make sure they get in. No charge. Her eyes widened. You would really do that? He nodded. It is the least I can do for a teacher who gives more than she earns. She laughed under her breath. You make it sound like charity. Good. It is not charity, he said gently. It is partnership. Their eyes met, and the space between them seemed to shrink. The sound of rain softened outside the high windows. For a long second, neither of them spoke. Then his phone buzzed. The moment broke. He glanced at the screen, his expression shifting. I am sorry. I need to take this. She nodded and turned to leave. But before she stepped away, he said, Emma, would you meet me here again tomorrow? I would like to show you something. Quote. She tried to sound casual. At the cafe? At the gallery, he corrected. After closing, her pulse fluttered. All right. As she walked back to her station, she could still feel his eyes on her. Something about his tone, steady, intentional, told her this was not just about art anymore. That night, Emma stood in front of her mirror, debating what to wear. She told herself it was just a meeting about a school field trip, but when she caught herself trying on lipstick for the first time in months, she sighed. You are hopeless, she said to her reflection. She opened her sketchbook and slipped the $10 mask inside the front pocket again. It had become her silent charm, a reminder of how one mistake had turned into something strangely meaningful. The next evening, she returned to the gallery after hours. The lights were dim, the paintings glowing softly under spotlights. Jacob stood by the largest canvas, a collection of children's faces forming the shape of a heart. "I wanted you to see this before the public does," he said. "We are naming it Masks of Kindness. It will be our permanent installation." Emma froze. "Masks of Kindness?" He smiled. "I remembered you said that to your students." Her throat tightened. "You remembered?" "Of course," he said. It inspired the whole campaign. For a moment, she could not speak. The rain outside tapped against the glass again, like applause from the night they first met. And deep down, she realized something dangerous and undeniable. She was beginning to care about a man who could change her world with a single decision. If you were Emma, would you meet him again after learning who he really was? Would you trust a man who once hid behind a mask, even if his kindness felt real? Tell us what you think in the comments below. The gallery was almost empty that evening, except for the sound of distant footsteps echoing through the marble halls. Emma Brooks stood beside Jacob Hale, staring at the massive canvas filled with color and innocence. "Masks of Kindness," he said again, as if the words held a secret he was afraid to explain. Emma traced the edges of the painting with her eyes. "My students made something like this last year, paper masks with hidden words of kindness on the back." Jacob turned toward her, his tone softer now. "You should have been here to see their faces when they painted. The press would have loved that story." She laughed nervously. "I am not sure the press cares about an art teacher from Queens. You makes Then they should," he said firmly. "You are the reason art still exists for kids like them." The words hit her harder than she expected. No one ever said things like that to her, especially not someone like him. They walked slowly through the rows of paintings, the dim lights casting reflections on the polished floor. Every few steps, their hands brushed accidentally, and every time, her breath caught just a little more. "I am still surprised you remembered what I said that day," Emma admitted. "About masks." Jacob smiled. It was more than a phrase, it was truth. People wear masks to hide, but sometimes kindness shows what is real. She met his gaze. "And what is behind yours?" The question hung in the air. For a moment, he looked away toward the tall windows, the city lights beyond them flickering like a restless sea. "Maybe that is something I am still figuring out," he said quietly. The honesty in his voice disarmed her. She wanted to know more the person behind the foundation, behind the mystery. But before she could ask, his assistant appeared at the door. "Mr. Hale, they are waiting for you upstairs." He nodded but did not move. "Emma, are you free tomorrow evening?" Her pulse skipped. "I think so. Why?" "There is a small benefit dinner," he said, very informal. "I would like you to join me." She blinked. "Me? Why me?" "Because you inspire this work," he said simply. "And because I enjoy your company." That night, Emma could not sleep. She replayed every word he said, every glance, every small pause that felt heavier than it should. She told herself it was just admiration, gratitude. Maybe, but her heart knew it was more. The next day, she showed up at the cafe early, too distracted to focus on brewing coffee. Her coworker teased her. "You have that look, like someone who just got asked on a real date." Emma smiled but said nothing. A real date with a CEO? Impossible. By evening, she stood outside the private restaurant where the benefit dinner was being held. Her borrowed dress fluttered in the wind as she stepped inside. The atmosphere was warm, filled with laughter and the faint scent of champagne. Jacob was already there, greeting guests. When he saw her, his entire expression softened. "You came." "You did ask," she said, half shy, half teasing. He offered his arm. "Then let us make it a night to remember." Quote. They moved through the evening like a quiet melody, talking about art, family, and dreams. She told him about her mother's illness and how teaching art paid for her care. He listened without interruption, without pity, just understanding. At one point, she caught herself watching him laugh with the other guests, confident yet kind, and wondered how someone like him could make her feel seen. As the night ended, he walked her outside. The city was cool, the street glimmering from earlier rain. "Thank you for tonight," she said. He smiled. "No, thank you for reminding me why I started all this." They stood in silence for a heartbeat too long. Then, softly, he said, "Emma, would you let me take you somewhere tomorrow? Somewhere that matters to both of us." She hesitated, feeling both hope and fear rise in her chest. "Where?" "You will see," he said. "Trust me." She nodded slowly. "All right, Jacob, I will trust you." But as she walked away under the streetlights, she whispered to herself, "I just hope you are not the kind of man who hides behind kindness." Because sometimes, the sweetest promises come from the people wearing the most beautiful masks. The next afternoon, the city sky hung low and pale, as if holding its breath. Emma Brooks stood outside the Hale Foundation building, clutching the strap of her worn canvas bag. She had told herself it was just a short visit, nothing more, but her heartbeat refused to listen. The receptionist smiled. "Mr. Hale is expecting you. Top floor." As the elevator doors slid shut, Emma caught her reflection in the mirrored walls. A second-hand dress, a small pendant, paint still faintly under her nails. She looked nothing like the women who probably visited him. And yet, here she was about to step into his world. When the elevator opened, Jacob Hale stood waiting by the glass railing, hands in his pockets, his usual calm wrapped around him like armor. "I was beginning to think you would change your mind," he said. "I almost did," she replied honestly. He smiled. "I am glad you didn't." He led her to the rooftop garden, an oasis above the noise. The view stretched over the river, city lights blinking to life as the sun began to fall. "I come here when I need to remember what matters," Jacob said, stopping beside a sculpture made of glass and steel. This is where the foundation began. Just an idea, a promise to do something good after everything else fell apart. Emma tilted her head. "Everything else?" He hesitated, the air shifting. "My father built this company with money, but no heart. When he passed, I inherited both his wealth and his mistakes. The gala was supposed to raise funds for children's art programs. Instead, it turned into another performance. Then I met you." Her breath caught. "At the gala?" "Yes," he said, turning toward her. "You looked lost but fearless. You reminded me what kindness looks like when it costs something. So, I played along. For one night, I just wanted to be someone normal." Emma stared at him, stunned. "You knew I thought you were someone else, and you still pretended?" "I did," he said quietly, "and I have regretted it every day since." Quote. Her pulse pounded in her ears. The rooftop suddenly felt colder. "You lied to me, Jacob." He stepped closer. "I did not mean to hurt you. I wanted to see who you were when titles disappeared." She shook her head. "That is not fair. You had a choice. I did not." The silence that followed stretched heavy between them. He tried to speak, but she raised her hand. "You think kindness is enough to cover deception?" "It is not." Jacob's voice dropped. "You are right. I should have told you the truth. But please know this, every moment after that dance was real." Emma looked away, fighting the sting in her eyes. "You have every kind of power in the world, Jacob. You do not understand what it is like to feel small and lied to." He exhaled slowly. "Then help me understand." But she could not. The disappointment was too sharp, the hurt too new. She turned to leave. "Emma," he said softly, "please do not walk away like this." She stopped, her back to him. "You hid behind a mask, Jacob, but I fell for the man underneath it. I just wish I knew which one of you was real." Without another word, she stepped into the elevator, the doors closing on his face. That night, Emma sat in her small apartment, staring at her sketchbook. The page was blank except for a faint outline of a mask. She picked up her pencil and wrote 3 words under it: "Truth costs kindness." Her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Jacob. "I am sorry. Let me prove who I am without the mask this time." She stared at the message but did not reply. The days that followed felt heavier than winter rain. Emma Brooks threw herself into teaching, pretending that the noise of her classroom could drown out the silence Jacob Hale had left behind. But even between the laughter and chatter of her students, his words haunted her. When the bell rang that afternoon, she sat alone at her desk, staring at the sketchbook that had become her diary of unspoken things. Between the pages were the silver paper mask, the folded note, and the memory of a man who had looked at her like she was something more than ordinary. She told herself it was better this way. He belonged to a world that sparkled too brightly, and she was made of quiet colors. Yet when the mail arrived later that evening, one envelope stood out. Cream-colored, handwritten, no return address. She almost threw it away, but curiosity won. Inside was a letter. "Emma, I know I do not deserve to explain, but I owe you the truth. The foundation is hosting an event tomorrow for the Masks of Kindness program. Your students' work inspired the entire campaign. Every piece carries their names credited to your class. It was never about image. It was about giving back what you gave me that night. Honesty, courage, and light in disguise. If you can forgive me enough to come, I will not hide this time. No masks, just me. Jacob." Emma set the letter down. The streetlights outside flickered across her wall like hesitant stars. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she whispered, "You never stop trying, do you?" The next evening, She stood outside the Hale Foundation again. Through the glass doors, she could see crowds moving inside: reporters, guests, artists, students, her students. Their masks hung proudly on the main wall, framed beneath a glowing sign that read, "Kindness never hides." She had not planned to walk in, but then she saw it one of her students, little Sophia, tugging at her mother's sleeve and pointing at a drawing. "Look, Mommy, Miss Brooks taught us that one." Emma's throat tightened. She took a step forward, then another, until the hum of conversation surrounded her. And there he was. Jacob stood at the center of the room. No tuxedo, no pretense, just a black suit and eyes that searched for her the moment she entered. He crossed the room slowly, carefully, as if afraid she might disappear. "You came," he said softly. "I did," she answered, her voice barely above a whisper. He smiled, but there was no arrogance in it now, only relief. "Every child here tonight is part of your legacy. You changed more lives than you think." "I did not do this," she said, glancing around. "You did." "No," he said gently. "You showed me how." They stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by laughter and music. Then Jacob reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a silver cufflink, the same one she had noticed at the gala. "I kept this," he said, "not as a reminder of my mistake, but of the night that gave me a second chance." Quote. Emma looked at it, then at him. "You could have told me all this sooner." "I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid that the truth would make you walk away. But hiding it made me lose you anyway." She exhaled slowly. "Jacob, I do not know if I can just forget it." "I do not want you to forget," he said. "I just want you to know I am still here without the mask this time." Gut. The lights dimmed as a short video began playing on the screen behind them, a montage of children's drawings, laughter, and her own handwriting on a chalkboard. Scary outside, kind inside. The audience applauded. Jacob leaned closer and whispered, "That was you, Emma. You started this." She blinked back tears, unsure if they came from pride or pain. When the applause faded, she turned toward him one last time. "Maybe kindness really should not hide," she said quietly. He nodded. "Then do not hide from it either." She took a step back, unsure if she was ready to forgive, but unable to deny that something inside her had shifted. The applause still echoed in the gallery long after the guests began to leave. Emma Brooks lingered near the children's art wall, tracing her fingers over the corner of a paper mask signed Sophia, age 8. The phrase above it, "Kindness never hides," glowed in soft white light. Behind her, Jacob Hale's voice broke the silence. "You stayed." She turned slowly. He stood a few steps away, his jacket draped over one arm, the other hand tucked nervously in his pocket. For a man known for commanding entire rooms, he suddenly looked unsure of himself. "I did not want to run again," she admitted. "At least not tonight." He nodded, as if the words were a gift. "Thank you for giving me that." Quote. The crowd thinned until only staff remained, rolling away tables and gathering champagne glasses. Jacob gestured toward the far end of the hall. "Would you come with me? There is something I want to show you." Emma hesitated but followed. They walked down a quiet corridor lit by a line of tiny ceiling lamps. At the end stood a set of glass doors leading to a smaller gallery. Inside, the walls were lined with canvases, bright, clumsy, joyful art. Children's art. Her breath caught. "These are from my class." Jacob smiled softly. "Yes. I asked your school for permission to display them. They are the heart of the new campaign." Emma's eyes moved from one drawing to the next: paper masks, painted hearts, and a single sketch she recognized instantly. Her own unfinished masks of kindness, signed in the corner in her handwriting. "How did you get this?" she whispered. "You left it at the cafe that night," Jacob said. "I kept it because it reminded me what real compassion looks like. I wanted the world to see it too." Emotion filled her chest so suddenly it almost hurt. "You turned my mistake into something good." He stepped closer. "You turned it into something worth believing in." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them felt fragile, like glass transparent, yet capable of breaking with a single wrong word. Finally, Jacob said quietly, "Emma, I cannot undo what I did, but I can live differently because of it. The masks, the gala, the foundation, none of it would mean anything if I did not learn to take mine off too." She met his eyes, seeing not the confident CEO the world knew, but the man who had danced with her under golden lights, pretending to be someone ordinary. "You already did," she said softly. "Right now, you are the most real I have ever seen you." He smiled faintly. Then let me prove it. Good. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small, her paper mask, the one folded from the $10 bill. It was worn now, the folds frayed from time. I kept this, he said, because it reminded me that sometimes the simplest things carry the biggest truths. He handed it to her. I want you to have it back. She unfolded it carefully, smoothing the creases. On the inside, new handwriting had been added in silver ink. Every mistake we make can still lead us home. Go. Her eyes stung with tears. You wrote this? He nodded. For both of us. The lights dimmed around them as the last staff member left. The entire gallery was quiet except for the soft hum of the city outside. Emma took a deep breath. I do not know if this means we are starting over, Jacob. He met her gaze, steady but tender. It does not have to mean that. It can just mean we stopped pretending. She smiled through her tears. Maybe that is enough for tonight. Close. They stood there, surrounded by the art of children who believed that kindness could change the world. And for the first time since the night they met, the silence between them felt safe like forgiveness. The morning after the gala, the city felt softer like the world had exhaled overnight. The rain had stopped, and sunlight spilled over the museum steps, glinting off the tall windows of the Hale Foundation. Inside, the last of the exhibits were being packed away. Emma Brooks stood near the gallery entrance, holding her sketchbook against her chest. The Masks of Kindness installation was officially closed to the public, but she had come to say goodbye. The children's paintings had already been carefully removed from the walls, leaving faint outlines where color once lived. She sighed quietly. It looks empty now. Jacob Hale appeared behind her, his voice calm and familiar. It is not empty. It is waiting for what comes next. Yeah. She turned to face him. He looked different somehow, still elegant, still composed, but lighter, as if he had set down something heavy. You came early, he said. I wanted to see it one more time, she replied, before it belongs to someone else. It will always belong to you, he said. You gave it its name. You gave it its soul. For a moment the only sound was the faint hum of the city waking up beyond the glass. Emma smiled softly. You know, I used to think masks were about hiding. Now I think they are about surviving. We wear them until someone makes us feel safe enough to take them off. Jacob nodded. And did you find that safety? She met his eyes. I think I did. They walked slowly through the hall one last time. Near the far wall, a new frame hung where her sketch used to be. Inside was a printed letter titled Dedication. Her name was at the top, written in elegant silver script. In honor of Emma Brooks, whose courage and kindness reminded us that art is not about perfection, but truth. Her throat tightened. You did not have to do this. I wanted to, he said, because the world should know who started this movement. She looked up at him. You really mean that? I do, he said simply. Every word. For the first time since that night at the gala, she let herself breathe fully. The tension between them had become something softer, no longer guilt, no longer doubt, but quiet understanding. Jacob extended his hand. I do not want to erase what happened between us, Emma. I just want to build something honest from it. Even if it takes time. She hesitated for only a moment before taking his hand. Honesty is a good place to start. They stepped outside together, sunlight warming their faces. The streets were alive again, children laughing, vendors shouting, the kind of morning that made the city feel forgiving. As they reached the corner, Emma stopped and pulled something from her bag, the folded $10 mask. She handed it to him. I think this belongs to both of us now. He smiled, unfolding it slowly. It started as a mistake, he said, but it brought me here. Then maybe it was the best mistake we could have made, she replied. They both laughed quietly. It was not the kind of laughter that erased the past, it was the kind that accepted it. Jacob turned toward her, eyes steady. Emma, whatever this becomes, whatever we are, just promise me one thing. What is that? She asked. Do not stop drawing, he said, because your art changes more than walls. It changes people. She smiled, eyes bright in the morning light. Then you promise me something too. Anything, he said. Do not hide behind kindness again. Just live it. He nodded. Deal. You zen? They walked together down the steps, their shadows stretching long across the stone. Behind them, the words engraved on the foundation's entrance gleamed in sunlight. Kindness never hides. So, what do you think, dear listeners? Was this a story of fate or of choice? Was it luck or the courage to love after a mistake? Tell us in the comments below, and if this story touched you, do not forget to subscribe and share it. Because sometimes, the best stories remind us that even after the wrong dance, we can still find the right person waiting when the music begins again.